So I understood I have more the political part, okay, which is very fine for me. Before answering this question, I would go one step back. The first question what we have to answer is not what architecture can help us. What first answer is what our visions, social visions for why we are doing space exploration. That's the main issue from my point of view. As long as, and you have shown us different way in your presentation, is this driven by economics, making space tourism, is it driven by institutional things, is it driven by science, is it driven by technology development and so on. My very personal point of view, I think this is a cultural undertaking of human mankind, to be very broad, so to say. I mean, and if you accept that, yes, this is an issue which is dealing with science, what we can do, microgravity research and so on and so on. Yes, this has something to do with technology, for the driving technology in a certain area. But at the end of the day, if we take this as a cultural undertaking, then you have you have to have another approach to these things. And you do not take art then as just and put the plate on the Beagle Land or something like that. The whole project, the whole undertaking is a cultural undertaking per se of human mankind. This is the reason why Mr. Columbus came to America. Yeah? This must be driven and backed by society. And therefore this kind of discussion what we have here today are very important. This must be a common understanding in society that this is a cultural undertaking. And just to come back what you have reported about the United States, this was currently ongoing based on this Augustine report. You have a broad discussion as far as I understood here from Europe in the United States. I can report to you, we have the same kind of discussion here in Europe. We had a meeting of all the ministers being responsible for space in the European Commission and ESA some 3 or 4 weeks ago in Prague, discussing about the need, the wish, the necessity, the aim to further develop space exploration as such, as a political goal, as a demonstration, and as a counteract. I mentioned in my beginning, my first intervention, that the Apollo mission was a child of the Cold War, so to say. Maybe we can use human exploration as something completely different, as truly international endeavor between all the nations involved already in the space station. We can use this international cooperation of space station as a starting point to further develop it. And these things has to be sorted out from my point of view on a political level, and this can then ensure the ground how we tackle the system, only from a pure political point of view, adding some plates and say this is art, or as a cultural endeavor. This is my point, that this is we have to discuss on a very broad sense, because as far as the institutional activities are concerned, this is taxpayers' money what we are using, so we have to justify that why we are spending this amount of money.
I totally agree. And it's nice to hear that from somebody who's responsible for many things in that area. What I learned from Brandt's paper, among other things, was that self-sufficiency is a big issue for space stations, but for architecture, extra-orbital or extraterrestrial architecture. So this could be an issue or a point which could be linked to a bigger horizon, larger horizon, which would also concern the state of the planet, etc., etc. So self-sufficiency could be something to think about and to re-import to planet Earth. And it's very banal, it's very eco something. I think it is an issue, and would be an opportunity to go back to what Buckminster Fuller said about spaceship Earth, which then is a mirror image of the space station or space architecture. And what is interesting about this self-sufficiency is that traditional architecture, which is static and structural and needs gravitation, here, and which is built within an environment, here the architecture is encapsulating and creating environment, livable space. And this is something really different from traditional architecture. It's really a challenge, I think. Right, okay, well, you'll have a microphone in a minute. And what also came to my mind that this kind of architecture, as we have seen, and as the astronauts have, as they're used to it, is purely functional, which is of course part of the traditional definition of architecture as utilitas, but this functionality is at foreground of this kind of architecture as it is really built. And if we take seriously what the motto of Sullivan, that form follows function, then we have here a perfect example of that, and no form, and no design actually, but rather a messy garçonnière. Sorry. And so I guess I quite agree with you in saying that the aesthetic part is part of a wider understanding of such projects, and of course include architecture and a reflection on what architecture can and should be.
Okay, I can try to say a few words about architecture, but I'm not, of course, a specialist. I think I concur with what you just said about functional things. And sometimes when you are in these vehicles and you sit back, even if we don't have seats, but you look at your environment when you have some free time, and you say, okay, in here everything is functional, and there is nothing, not a little piece of equipment which is not functional. Just because if you want to implement something inside the space station or space vehicle which is not functional, you will have to ask someone, and this will have a cost, of course. But I don't know if you remember the picture of my of the flag of my hometown, but the only thing not functional in this picture was the flag. But for me it was important. So for human aspects, of course, it's things which are not functional are important. So I remember a few years ago in the space station program, they had some cost overrun, and they had to cancel some of the modules. And the first module which was cancelled was a habitability module, which was the module designed to be used mainly for the crew, life, for the quarters, or of course the hygiene stations, and also for the entertainment a little bit. And this was cancelled first because of the cost overrun. So I think if there is some room for architecture or art in the space station, then because this, I think this would be very important in the future, because we can spend 2 weeks, 1 month, even 6 months in these things, like living and working in your office. But I think this has a limit, and after a certain time, we need something a little different when we can really disconnect from your working environment. And this is, I think, in the future we'll have some for architecture.